Wait, we're afraid of men in dresses now? You know what I find absolutely fascinating about this whole transgender culture war? My generation, the tail end of the baby boomers, is apparently terrified of men in dresses now. My generation, the hairband glam rock generation. Are you kidding me? We grew up in the 1980s. Our toughest music came from guys with hair down to their asses, eyeliners around their eyes, lipstick on their mouths, earrings dangling from both ears, leather pants so tight it violated several laws of physics, and enough Aqua Net in one dressing room to punch another hole in the ozone layer. And nobody looked at Dee Snider and screamed, "Protect the children!" We bought the kid the cassette. Motley Crue started around in makeup, leather, lace, teased hair, and high-heeled boots. Poison looked prettier than half the girls in my high school. David Bowie spent years deliberately screwing with everybody's idea about masculinity, femininity, and sexuality. And somehow, America survived. We didn't have to evacuate Nebraska. The Republic remained standing. Western civilization somehow managed to limp through Vince Neil wearing eyeliner. And here's the thing, this wasn't even new. Long before glam rock, Americans were watching gender-bending performances in vaudeville. Movies did it, television did it, Milton Berle put on a dress, Flip Wilson created Geraldine, Monty Python had men playing women constantly, and Bugs Bunny, that rabbit, put on a dress every third Saturday morning. And somehow, an entire generation of American children managed to reach adulthood. Apparently, Bugs Bunny wasn't grooming us. He was just trying to get away from Elmer Fudd. But here's where the joke gets serious. Because drag, cross-dressing, gender nonconformity, and being transgender are not the same thing. And pretending they are doesn't help anybody understand the issue. The point is simpler. Human beings have been screwing around with society rules about what men and women are supposed to look like for a very long time. And America had repeatedly renegotiated those rules. There was a time when long hair on a man was absolutely scandalous. Earrings were scandalous. Men wearing pink was scandalous. Women wearing pants was scandalous. Women cutting their hair short was scandalous. My generation seems to inherit a rule book about gender from a previous generation, and then immediately starts scribbling in the margins. So the interesting question isn't, why did transgender people suddenly appear? They didn't. The more interesting question is, why did gender nonconformity suddenly become something we're supposed to be terrified of? Because here's the part my generation really ought to remember. We were the dangerous ones. Heavy metal was going to corrupt America's children. Remember that? The music was satanic, the album covers were dangerous, the lyrics were destroying morality. There were supposedly hidden messages in the records if you played them backwards. Parents were terrified. Politicians got involved. In 1985, Congress actually held hearings about explicit lyrics. And guess who showed up to testify? Dee freaking Snider, the guy with giant blonde hair, makeup, and clothes that looked like Fredericks of Hollywood had opened a motorcycle dealership. He sat in front of the United States Senate and essentially told America's political establishment, "You don't get to decide my art. Children, or what my children can hear." Here's the beautiful historical irony. One of those generations that survived a moral panic about its own culture is now living through another moral panic. Except this time, some of us apparently forgot what being on the receiving end of that felt like. Because moral panic almost always comes packaged the same way. First, identify something unfamiliar. Then, make it frightening. Then, connect it to children. And once you've convinced parents that somebody is coming for their kids, you don't have to explain much of anything else. Fear does the heavy lifting. We did it with comic books, rock and roll, Elvis, heavy metal, Dungeons and Dragons, rap music, violent video games, Harry Potter, for God's sakes. Every few years, America discovers another thing that supposedly is going to destroy an entire generation of children. And somehow, the children keep growing up. That doesn't mean every question about transgender policy is illegitimate. There are legitimate debates to have. Sports, medical standards, age, schools, privacy. Those are policy questions. And policy questions deserve evidence, nuance, and actual discussion. But there's a huge difference between debating policy and turning a tiny minority of Americans into the national boogeyman. Transgender people aren't the abstract political issue. They're people. They're somebody's kid, somebody's coworker, somebody's neighbor. And you don't have to understand every part of another person's life to decide if they deserve to be treated like a human being. That is supposed to be the easy part. And maybe that's what bothers me the most about the whole thing, because we spent the 80s telling our parents, "You can't tell us what music to listen to. You can't tell us how long our hair can be. You can't tell us what clothes we're allowed to wear. You can't tell us what a man is supposed to look like. Turn up the radio. Leave us alone. We're not going to take it. We'll figure it out ourselves." That was practically the anthem of our entire generation. And 40 years later, apparently, some of us became our parents. Only now, we're the ones standing in the doorway, looking at the next generation, shaking our heads, telling them their clothes are wrong, their hair is wrong, their music is wrong, their identity is wrong. And civilization itself might collapse if we just let these kids be different. Funny how that works. Yesterday's dangerous rebellion becomes today's classic rock. Yesterday's freak becomes today's icon. Yesterday's threat to American values gets played during halftime at the football game. So maybe before we manufacture another national panic over somebody who looks different, dresses different, or lives differently than we do, we ought to dig out those old Poison albums. Look at the cover and remember, we weren't asking permission either. That's straight talk. Thanks.